You get born and you start playing a human game and you move around as a human being, building up this identity across time. And there is what you think you would like to be or become or create for yourself and the path that you think you're on. But simultaneously, there's another path at play, and that is the path of your heart or your soul. And a lot of times, the path that you think you're on and the path that your soul knows it's on are two completely different things, at least until we start to align them. But even then, that can be a bit tricky. And so you might think that you're this person trying to accomplish these goals and create this type of life. And your soul might be going, I'm here to evolve in all these particular ways in this lifetime. I'm so excited to be on my journey here at Earth. And it has nothing to do with what, this ego up here thinks that we're up to. They're totally different, right? And so the process of learning how to listen to your own inner guidance and find and discover that compass and actually be able to live from that place is essentially learning how to bring the journey your soul's on and the journey you're on into harmony and balance with one another, and to be able to source a deeper guidance and to let that steer the ship of your life. Of course, because none of us have really been taught that that place exists, at least not in traditional, education, until you start to catch on. You don't know that that place exists. You don't know what it feels like to connect to that guidance. You're not told that it has any value, right? And you're told to source your wisdom from who you are and who you ought to be from outside of yourself, right? So other people know better, school knows better, society knows better, adults know better, whatever, of who you are and what you should do and who you should be. And so this is really a process of getting back into that deeper guidance and start to let that be the thing that guides you. If you had been listening to your own guidance from the very beginning, and you were taught that that place exists, and you were taught to have the courage to follow it, and that was respected, by now your life would probably look completely different than it does, because we've mostly designed our lives coming from disconnected from that guidance. So if you had designed your entire life to reflect the relationship between you and your soul's guidance, your life would look different by now. You would have made different decisions, the things we purchased, the relationships that we're in, the jobs we have, the career. So you can actually look at the life you're in right now as a direct reflection of how much or how little have you actually been listening and living from that guidance. A couple of interesting things to note about that guidance system. One thing is that it is more than perfectly happy to guide you in directions that are actually very uncomfortable. The soul's focus is to grow and evolve and experience, whatever way is designed for you, right? Whatever way you're up to. And it does not care if the best way for you to grow and evolve in this moment is what you might define as a catastrophe, gigantic heartbreak or loss or those classic nightmares. Your soul doesn't care. Your soul is going, that's exactly what they need. This is the perfect thing for you to grow and evolve in this moment. And so it'll just point you right in the direction of like, that is going to suck. Get after it, because on the other side, you'll be better and greater than ever before, right? So you have to be aware that just because you're following your heart or your compass does not mean that everything's going to work out perfectly. A lot of people think I'm just going to take this leap of faith and then, like a movie, I'll just land into a yoga pose on the side of a mountain and everything will just be bliss. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. In part because in order to really let the full expression of who you are out, there's a lot of things that you've already created or built up that actually we're probably going to have to go. Like maybe 90% of you on the process of you truly waking up and aligning with your soul is going to be burned away in the process. And that's terrifying. And that's why most people don't do it. And that's why we resist and we hesitate and all that stuff. But maybe the 10% of you that would remain would be fucking incredible. Maybe that 10% that would remain is the best of you. Maybe that 10% that remain is all that you actually truly need for this lifetime. And so as you start to orient yourself towards the compass, it is always going to guide you out into the unknown. It's always going to guide you. Doesn't mean physically either. It doesn't mean literally out into the unknown. You don't have to like travel or quit your job or anything like that. Sometimes this is just an internal shift into places of you that you've been avoiding, into your psyche, your belief systems, right? All of that could be where it wants to guide you. But it's always going to guide you into the unknown, because everything that's already in the known, you've already learned or mastered all of that. There's nothing else to gain there. So your next evolution has to be beyond that in some way, shape, or form. And the compass will always be pointing you there. Meanwhile, your mind or your ego, or whatever you want to call that, which is beautiful and necessary, by the way, is always going to resist that. Because from the mind's perspective, the known is safe. We've already mapped this territory. We've already set our lives up in this way. I know that we can survive, whether or not you're actually miserable is kind of indifferent, right? I know that I can survive in the current way things are. I've already tested that. So if you tell me to leave that, I'm leaving my habitat, I'm leaving my safety. And the mind is always going to push back and resist the idea of the unknown. And it's going to make a very logical, clear case for why following your heart is a terrible idea. And it's not wrong in some sense, you know what I mean? Like madly falling in love is like from the mind's perspective, it's like the dumbest thing you could do. You know what I mean? It's like, wait a second, you are gonna let become overcome with your emotions. You're gonna let this person you don't know that well into your life. You're gonna bond yourself to, you know what I mean? There's all these reasons why falling in love is a terrible idea, except that your heart knows that it's a brilliant idea. And it can't really explain why it knows. It just knows. Not until the heart can make a stronger case and present the evidence that we should leave, well, then I'm not going to leave. But the heart can't do that because it's not designed to operate that way. It's a compass. It's pointing you in a direction, but it's not going to give you all the reasons why, right? Because it can't, because it's the unknown. It can't say like, well, this is exactly why. And this is what's going to happen if you do all of that. It's not going to know the details. It's just going to point you in the direction. And then it's going to ask of you, do you want to take a leap of faith? And it's actually necessary that you don't know. It's necessary that that doesn't make sense. It's necessary that that is a leap of faith, because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be a real challenge. It wouldn't be a real growth opportunity. It wouldn't be a real commitment. It wouldn't be a real surrender, right? It wouldn't mean anything if it was simply over here is better and here's every reason why, and this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to play out, and there's no risk involved. Well, if there's no risk involved, then there's no growth involved, right? So it has to be some level of an unknown edge. What you get is that your heart will give you a feeling. If you feel into, what would it be like if I did quit that job? What would it be like if I did tell that person how I feel? What would it feel like if I made that change? And if you go deep enough into your guidance, it will give you a feeling. And the feeling, one part might be scary, but another feeling is like, man, it feels light. It feels expansive. It feels like growth. It feels like connection. It feels like excitement. It feels like passion. There's feelings in there. And you can imagine that the feelings are like a foreshadowing that says, I can't give you all the details, but if you listen to me, this is the feeling that comes with following this road. If you follow me this way, you're going to experience more of these feelings. One way to know the feeling of your guidance system is that it feels right. Doesn't necessarily mean that what the heart's asking of you or the soul's asking of you, for me, I interchange them, is the most fun. Doesn't mean that it necessarily even makes sense. Doesn't mean it's the safest. You might have to let go of some things you really like in order to follow where the guidance is trying to take you. But on a deep enough level, it just feels right. And so there's that knowing of like, no, I have to. And that's different, right? And there's a joy in that, but it's a deeper joy. It's more like fulfillment and alignment than it is pleasure or safety. And you can reverse that as well, right? And go, okay, great. What happens if I stay? What happens if I stay in that job or stay with that partner or stay with this thing or not make those changes? What does that feel like? And what does that road feel like? And your heart or your guidance will give you a foreshadowing that way as well. It gets heavier, it gets more constricting. Over time, I deteriorate underneath that because I'm living out of alignment. And then from there, once you know, you can't not know. And then you have to make a choice. Am I willing to listen and let this go where it goes or not? And that's your right. You get to make that choice. One of the things that I've noticed that's interesting that happens over time is that the more you are willing to listen to that guidance, you will notice, as I'm sure all of you have at least some point in your life, where you've taken a leap that you knew was a heart-centered, soul-level decision. You took the leap, and in hindsight, even if it was painful in the moment, even if it was chaos, whatever, looking back, you're grateful that you did it, and you realize that it was the right thing to do. The more you do that, you actually start to gather logical evidence that even though it makes no fucking sense, when we follow this heart thing, my life actually works out for the better. And so you can actually start to present that evidence to your mind. And your mind will say, well, make a case. And you'll say, well, look, There was this time and then this time and this time. And looking back, those were all huge, awesome shifts. I'm so glad I did all of that. And yes, it didn't make sense, but there's totally evidence that living this way works. And there's the part of your mind that will stay in resistance to that. But there's another part of your mind that will actually start to switch sides and be in support of your heart or your soul. It'll be in support of the transformation. It will be in support of, let's go through the death rebirth process again and step to the other side, because I don't know why, but somehow this is working. And the more that you make those decisions and your mind starts to get in harmony with the heart, so that your operating systems, your head, your heart, are actually working together, it becomes easier and easier and easier to make decisions from your heart and soul. And then eventually, that's just the only way to go. Maybe not on every micro decision. I don't do that. No one's perfect. That's fucking hard to do. There's lots of small decisions, but at least in every major decision, you know where you're going to decide from. And whatever that place says is what you're doing, period. And you build trust with that over time, right? If that's a foreign idea or a strange idea, you don't have to buy that, but consider it and then play with it over time and find out if that's true. Explore and find out for yourself along the way. Last thing I want to mention that's super important. It's a place where I notice people get stuck a lot, because your compass is going to be guiding you towards your highest evolution consistently for the rest of your life, because you always can be growing and evolving. And we don't know the limit to that if you just let it take you. No one knows what you could become if you followed the compass, got out of your way, and just continuously let you grow and evolve. We don't know who you become, right? We're all limitless potential. So it's premature to put a cap on that. Assume that when you jump and you land into a new life, that you will be leaving it at some point. Don't get too attached to it. Enjoy the shit out of it while it's there. But assume that at a certain point, you will be asked to take the next step. And then when that happens and you know it, do whatever is necessary and see, where would my evolution take me now? Where would my highest calling take me now? I have no idea. Think about your life like a movie, and these are just scenes. Enjoy the scene while you're in it, but fall in love with the thing that survives across time as you continue to grow and evolve. Right? There's a part of you that dies, and there's a part of you that it reemerges, and then there's the self that actually stays alive across time. Right? You're still here, right? No matter what happens, there's a sense that you are still here. Carl Jung called that, it's the self. It's the one who stays alive through all transformations and all scenes of the movie. And when the excitement becomes the growth and evolution and what's possible, more than the attachment to any scene of any particular movie, you're willing to exit stage left when your soul calls you to grow and evolve. And that is where things get way more exciting and way more interesting. If I start to consider, I have a guidance, it's pointing me somewhere, I have a body, it wants to take me somewhere. What if I just start to watch this whole thing a bit more like a movie, and then just witness over the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, where that thing would take you if you just let it play itself out? And who knows? We might all be massive world changers on the inside, waiting to emerge, ready to impact this planet in ways that we couldn't possibly conceive. That's in you. We've seen people who've done that, right? We know that potential in the human being exists. And if it exists in someone, it exists in you. The best way to practice this is to go through the process of learning what it's like to get connected to your compass without a desire to get anything from it. Go spend time with your heart and your compass and just get familiar with what it feels like physically to be in that place, and just spend time there. The real transformation is the shift you start to create with the relationship with that part of yourself. So let go of trying to get answers and just work on, can I genuinely attempt to rebuild this relationship with this part of myself and begin to let this part of myself have a voice in my life?